And she said, I never thought I would have a place this pretty. I love this so much. It makes me feel so good about myself, because everything she had was used in secondhand and not in good shape. And, so so much changes when you put things away, when you declutter, when you actually clean, like dust. Wipe your countertops down. Wipe the face of your cabinets down. Clean. Get something clean that's free.
Welcome back to Smarter Wealth. This is the podcast where we talk about real life. We talk about real change and how to navigate it all without losing our minds. Well, thanks for joining us today. I'm so excited to be joined by Kendall Evans, and we are going to talk about design and dopamine design and how you can create a space that truly can affect your mood. And one thing I think we've all learned along the way is that we've been doing this forever. Yeah. We just didn't necessarily know that it was called dopamine design.
Right.
So, Kendall, welcome.
Thank you.
This is going to be such a fun conversation.
It is. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I really, really am honored and appreciative.
Well, dig in. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your history and your business.
Okay. So I am a degreed interior designer. I graduated from Baylor University many years ago. My mother was also a designer, so I grew up teething on carpet books and samples and all those good things.
She'd bring you along with her then?
She did. Yeah. Very early, I would go to client meetings and sit and listen and take notes sometimes, and she would take me we lived in the Dallas area, I grew up in Arlington, and she would take me to the Dallas Market Center, and we would go shop and have lunch, and she would take me to her upholstery shop, and she would take me to jobs in the middle of production, and I got to see her work with her subcontractors, and I started from a very, very early age, hands-on training. So started that way, really. After I graduated from Baylor, I really, I didn't really want to do residential design. I did an internship with a design firm in Dallas called Trisha Wilson and Associates. It's no longer open. I think the past several years kind of took care of that. Unfortunately. Yeah. But she was a incredible designer and had a massive company. She had several locations: London, Tokyo, Dallas, all over the world.
Wow.
And she specialized and her team specialized in designing hotels and luxury resorts.
Oh.
And I mean, that was an incredible internship to do.
Oh my gosh, Kendall.
Totally. I just can't even believe the things I've been able to do. I can't even believe it. After that, after I graduated, I did a few little small things, and I couldn't find my footing.
Your niche.
I really couldn't. And I fumbled around and sold pagers for Southwestern Bell for a little while, sold computer systems.
Some people listening might not even know what pagers are.
I know. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm that old. And I actually got fired from a job selling computer systems. Wonder why. Because
I was not made to do this.
I couldn't meet my quota. I talked to my clients for too long. Shocker.
You were made to talk.
I was. So this is back in the day whenever people placed want ads in the newspaper. I'm that old. And this tiny little ad, it was probably a half-inch little tiny ad, just jumped off of the newspaper at me. And it was designer for, I can't remember the exact ad, but it was to design custom carpeting. And I thought,
okay,
that sounds very interesting.
Yes.
So I went to the interview, and thankfully I got the job. The company is still in business today. It's called Calligritas International. If you watch this, George, hi. Phenomenal
experience
it
and
was
opportunity.
incredible. It was in the private aviation industry.
Carpet making for airplanes.
For private airplanes. Yes, and private yachts. So at the time there were two divisions, private yachts and private airplanes. And so the private aviation industry became my client. And so I had some accounts, and then I had to develop other accounts, but I also got to design. I mean, I literally could sit down with a pen and, like, we didn't have computer systems. Like,
CAD back then.
I drew it.
Yeah.
And we would produce samples. At their facility, they dye all of the yarn, all of the wool yarn by hand. And hand tuft all the carpet. I mean, literal ultimate control.
Fascinating.
It was, for someone like me who is a control
More than freak.
it was the best job, and I got to wear all of the hats. I got to be in sales. I got to be in design. I got to manage production. I got to travel, and it was incredible. Loved it so much. And then I got invited to go to work for Learjet in Arizona.
Wow.
At one of their completion facilities. And so I got into private aviation, designing private jets. I mean, who gets to do this?
Kendall.
It was amazing.
I've never known anyone to do anything even remotely
How blessed.
amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And then
amazing.
after that, I moved back home to Dallas to get married. And I got a job at a company called KC Aviation. They designed a little bit larger aircraft for Bombardier, Canadair. And then that facility was purchased by Gulfstream Aerospace.
Oh, wow.
So then I worked with Gulfstream for a little while and got to travel and just meet these incredible people and spend copious amounts of their money. And
Which is always more fun when you're spending
it is.
somebody else's money.
but
Let's
it's
just
so
be
spoiling
honest.
because then you go home and you go, I don't like this color of leather. I would like it to be dyed the color I want. It's not quite the right shade. I mean, it's just like you really have
It's
to check
another
yourself.
world. Yeah.
It is truly another world. Like we designed I can't tell who the client was.
Sure.
But we designed a set of china for a client because they couldn't find one that they liked.
I feel so sorry for them.
It was insane. I mean, you just kind of
Wow.
you just end up going, what?
Yeah. So what's that pressure feel like when you have a client that can't find china, as an example of all the gorgeous china on the planet? I can't imagine the pressure to
Design.
and succeed in that. And what if they say, done, sorry, don't like it?
You just do it.
Yeah. So
And no
what was
pressure.
that pressure? You didn't feel pressure?
Oh, no, it was
you
so much
loved
fun
it.
because then
Oh,
you just
wow.
get to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
It was really, it was
Then
cool.
that means you are truly doing the right thing, and you are in
whenever
the
there's no
space
pressure
God
and you're just
created you
like,
for. Yes.
it was very fun. That was fun. So what I do after that? Oh, after that, I got the job I really wanted.
Okay. Because that wasn't
That
cool
wasn't good
enough. Right. Yeah.
I became a mom,
Oh, that's
and
so precious.
I got to stay at home with my two boys
Yeah.
for 17 years. And
Oh, that's wonderful.
yeah, truly,
Good
it was
for
the job I
you.
really always wanted. Not the job for everybody, but did that and.
And setting aside your dreams and pausing on those so that you could put your family first.
Yeah.
And that is the most noble thing.
It was what I was
woman
created to
that's-
do.
Oh,
It was truly what I
Kendall,
was
that's
created to do.
beautiful.
And I'm so thankful
yeah.
that I got to do that. We did a part-time homeschool, and I mean, I like dove in. Everything I do, dive, just dive.
1,000%.
Just dive. Don't dip your toe, dive. But after a certain amount of time, it was time to get back to work.
Yeah.
Really. And so I had actually established my own company, my own LLC, we'll say.
Sure.
So the whole time I stayed at home with my boys, I would do a few little projects here and there, small, nothing major, big,
Yeah.
several house projects. And then about 5 years ago, dove in. My husband,
It
one of
was
the best things he's ever said, he said, "This is our life." And we decide how it's going to go because we only get this one.
That's right.
So let's do it.
Let's make it happen. I love that.
He totally had my back.
What a beautiful partner.
And, it just kind of happened from there. I do a lot of architectural style drawing. I can't say I don't do architecture. I'm not an architect. But I do drafting. It's not AutoCAD, but it's another program. And so the drawings that I produce, I have two builders that I work a lot with. And so we do renovations. We submit the plans to the city to be recorded and to see if any changes need to be made. I've done 3 houses that were ground up construction.
Oh, wow.
And many, many more projects that are all sizes of renovations. A couple that were complete and total gut and redo to just select a paint color here and there.
Sure. What's your favorite thing to do? What's your favorite project?
I love designing and drafting plans. I absolutely love it. If I could go back, I probably would have become an architect.
Wow.
I really love that process. I love space planning. I think being in aviation really honed the skill of space planning because you have a finite tube.
Yeah.
You can't drill a hole and put a bubble on the outside of the airplane because you didn't plan it correctly.
Right.
Right. And you can't, if you're flying and there's no space for an essential item, now it's going to be a long flight.
Yeah. That's the problem. Yeah.
So I really, really love the process of drawing and designing from scratch. And then, being able to add everything else that's the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
But, you're not really a baker if you just ice things all day.
Sure. Yeah. You like the whole process.
I love the whole process.
Yeah.
I love all the hats.
I hate the term making the sausage, but that kind of still fits, right?
It does.
Like you're clearly a part of the whole process from the very beginning.
Yeah. I love it. It's like playing a really hard game. And the better you know the rules, the better game player you are. If you don't know the rules, then you're not going to go very far in the game.
Yeah.
But if you know and understand the codes and restrictions and if you understand building and construction, and believe me, I'm the tip of the iceberg. That's why I have really great people I work with. Yeah. I love working with trades. They're so gifted and talented. They're so knowledgeable. They make what I do look good.
Right. Absolutely. And it feels like we don't have enough people that are going into woodworking and some of these beautiful, very, very intricate things that we need in our homes to make them beautiful.
Well, and just from a safety perspective, plumbing and electric, let me tell you, some of the things that we've uncovered in doing a renovation.
Yeah.
Wow. You need really well-trained, intelligent, knowledgeable people that are not afraid of hard work.
Right. Well, I think there's a lot of hope there because they are clearly growing vo-tech schools and lots of opportunities for our younger generation to get involved. And there's a lack of a stigma today. Unfortunately, there was in the past. And that's leaving.
Whenever I was going to college, it was, no, you need to get a degree. Do better, do more. I don't want you having to... And you're right, there was a stigma, and it really should not be there.
No.
Because we do need really good craftsmen.
Yeah.
We do need people that know what they're doing and do it well. And there's a really good income to be earned
Yep.
I'll tell you, really good income.
Especially if you are the entrepreneurial type.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's kind of switch gears and talk about what dopamine design actually means. How would you define that?
So, I love whenever you ask me if I had heard of dopamine design. I honestly had not heard of it. So I, did my due diligence. And really it's the approach that I've always kind of had in that dopamine design is the approach to design that satisfies your need, satisfies what makes you feel comfortable, what makes you feel happy, what makes you feel at peace, what makes you feel inspired,
Yeah.
what makes you feel safe,
Yes.
and whatever that need is. Different rooms will have different assignments,
Yeah.
right? Like your bedroom and dressing area and your private areas. Most people want those to be a little bit peaceful, so they can rest, they can let down and like truly be in their inner sanctum, right?
Yes.
Maybe you have a home office, maybe it needs to be filled with inspiration and creativity and color and energy and lots of that in that space.
Yes. Motivation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
it's the approach that really gives you permission to do what you want.
In different spaces.
Yeah, in different spaces.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point because sometimes it feels, because as not a professional, but just wanting a beautiful home and loving the space I'm in and seeking a very beautiful space, there's this underlying foundation, but it needs to be, I need to have continuity. If I have too many things going on in this room, it needs to flow into this room. And I think sometimes personally, I feel paralyzed by designing certain things within the home too drastically different because I'm afraid they're not going to flow.
Right.
So why am I limited? I feel like that's a limited mindset.
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying. I think for me, and I understand exactly what you're saying. For me, one of the ways that I create a flow in a space is I choose 1 to 3 colors that are going to be sometimes it'll be a primary color, it may be an accent color, or it may be just a little hint every now and then. I hate the word pop of color. It's so overused, so I avoid that. But in my own home, I love, and people will cringe at this, but it's my home and I love it.
That's right.
I love orange and all
Okay.
the shades of orange.
Okay.
I love blue, cobalt blue, and all the shades therein. And, well, really more, a turquoise and all the shades.
Okay.
And a little bit of a yellow.
Okay. So
Right?
you are bright. Those are very
love
bright, loud
color.
colors. Yeah.
But the way that you tone them and the way that you combine them, and so maybe in one room, the cobalt blue is a little bit more of a strong statement and the others are pulled back. And then maybe in another room, you do something a little bit different, and
Yeah.
even on into your other spaces, so that there is a general flow, but maybe not screaming at you in the same tone
Right.
in every room and everywhere you go.
Because the change in the tonal change and the shade change of that one color, it's going to make you feel completely different in a different room.
Exactly. So I have a 120-year-old house in downtown Rogers. It's a little 4-square craftsman house. It's super cute.
I bet it's gorgeous.
But from our front porch to our back deck, those colors all work their way in and out. And, the blue and white pottery called chinoiserie
Yes.
or toile. There's 2 different forms of it. One is Asian and the other is a little bit more French country or European. I have had pieces that belonged to my mom.
Wow.
And I never let go of them. And my husband several times has been like, "Oh, can we please?" And I'm like, "No, I love them. I love them, even when they were not in style, even when they were the farthest thing from being in style. And now it's all coming back.
Sure
Everybody's
is.
getting that stuff out.
Yeah.
And I've loved it the whole time. So I would say again, that's part of that dopamine design. I've loved those pieces. They mean something to me. So don't be afraid to hold on to something and use it even when it's not popular.
Right.
Because again, Architectural Digest is not going to show up at your front door to do a photo shoot. If it makes you, and if your neighbor doesn't like it, well, they are released from paying your mortgage.
By God?
Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks or likes. And, design and designers have gotten kind of a bad rap for having kind of a snooty portrayal.
Yeah.
And for me, that couldn't be farther from the truth.
Yeah. So you say something, you've said, we wear our home. So tell us what you mean by that.
There are several meanings to we wear our home. Literally, you do wear your home. You're in your home, and it is on you. It is about you. It is, just like you put on a shirt and or a jacket and you dress for the day. I always encourage my clients to choose colors that flatter you. Choose colors that you look good in. Now, you have my permission to take this out of your podcast if it doesn't fit well. But you might be naked in one of those rooms.
Okay.
You might not have anything to hide behind.
Yes.
Don't paint a room a color that is not flattering to you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Honestly.
Clearly.
I have a client right now, and the colors in her home, she selected long before I came along, so I can't take credit for it. But they are so beautiful, specifically with her skin tone. She looks radiant in every single room. And it's not a popular color. It's not anything that has hit the scene since the 80s. I'm not kidding you. But she looks gorgeous in her home. It flatters her skin. It just is. It is beautiful.
Okay.
It's
that
beautiful.
is blowing my mind because I've never thought about the reflection of the color in your space and actually how it would physically reflect on you.
Yeah.
That's a whole new concept.
It really is, isn't it?
Yes.
But it's not. I mean,
right.
Because
it shouldn't be.
Well, I've always said it, but
therefore it is not new.
It is not new. But for example, I'm not really a big fan of the greens. Okay. Just
dark green, sage green.
They're gorgeous as accents. And some of the ones that are being used right now as primary colors are really stunningly beautiful.
Yeah.
But there are some real peaked greens that I've seen people choose that you just kind of think, you should not be naked in that room.
Yeah.
Like, that is not, God did
not
not
doing
mean for us
anything.
to wear that.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Greens, some yellows, and I just said orange is one of my favorite colors.
Yeah.
Used sparingly and used appropriately, it can be a really exciting thing, you know? So when I say you wear your home, you do. You should be, and sometimes I will ask a client if we can go in their closet, like on an initial interview with a client, as we've gotten to know each other a little bit, to see what colors do you wear? What colors do you select to wear? What makes you feel, what do you feel most beautiful in?
Right.
And then, you do have to consider their spouse or their partner, because you're not the only one in the home. But
Right.
In general, that's a really good place to start for a dopamine aesthetic. What looks good on you?
Yes. So then let's talk about lighting too, because, right? I mean, there's a lot of real studies out there about lighting and blue lighting and bad lighting and warm lighting and good sunlight. So clearly affecting our neurotransmitters and our happy place. So
Absolutely.
how do you choose certain lighting in that same vein of wearing your house?
That's a very, very good question. I'm not always a fan of real harsh lighting, but I think it's really important to incorporate layers of light in your
Okay.
home. So
That
you
makes
have
sense.
overhead lighting, which is really more just your everyday, just so you can get through the room.
Like workspace lighting almost.
Yeah, overhead lighting. There's ambient lighting, which is like your lamps and just your little touches of. Those are not meant for you to work by necessarily, but it brings a warmth and a personal touch to a room.
Yes.
And then you have your task lighting, which is so you can really do what needs to be done. And there's several shades and tone values of light that help you do certain things. In kitchens in general, I use a little bit more of a daylight bulb because you need to be able to see where you're using a knife or reaching into a hot oven. And you do want to be able to see better. But, living spaces, you want to be able to have that warmth
Yes.
and that ambiance, and you want a little bit more control. So we might use dimmers, we might use three-way bulbs or whatever, and there's lots of different things you can do. There's apps that you can program lighting. I mean, if you want to get really, really high tech with it, there are several services that can come out and program a whole home to have programs for each room. I've done that before. It can get a little costly, but if it's important to you, then that's available. But for just everyday Joe Schmo and me, just different colors of bulbs and different layers of light.
Yeah.
Did that answer what you were asking?
Yeah, absolutely. We have, so in our home, well, this is actually kind of funny because having a teenage daughter, a teenager, period, she wanted this like strip lighting to go in her room, and it can change 120 colors or whatever. And at first it's like a joke of, are we gonna have a disco in here? Like what are we doing in here? It looks like it's the poltergeist is happening from the outside, right?
Underneath the door, it's
You see red
pulsing,
and blue, and so we were just playing around one night, and I was laying in her bed with the remote, and we were just going through all the colors, and there were a couple of colors, and I thought, oh man, this is awesome. And one of them is actually like a light orange. And when you see it on the thread, orange doesn't ever feel like it would be a good light for anybody. But in that space, it's such a light color that it feels so warm, and it casts a really beautiful light. Yeah.
Yeah, orange and yellows, those warmer colors they mimic the sun.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Well, there you go.
Something that is warm and makes you feel
kind of warm and
just at
cozy.
peace. And those cooler colors, the purples, blues, some values of pink even can go. Every color can go warm and cool, but those warmer colors, really in general, are just they're just relaxing. I mean, you can almost feel your shoulders relax whenever you change the value of a color.
Yes. So I know too, from the outside of our home looking in, I like uniformity, but my husband's office and the dining room are the two big windows you see, which are two very different lighting. We have very warm in the dining room, and his office is very work.
Daylight.
Yeah. It's like blue light versus orange light looks like from the outside.
Yeah.
And I have to get over that because on the internal side, if we had that blue light in our dining room, you would not want to be sitting at that table having a family dinner.
No.
Yeah.
It might be that may be the next weight loss.
Or Thanksgiving when you have people coming over you don't want. No, turn on that blue light.
Yeah, turn on the blue light. They won't want to eat much, and they'll get out quick.
That's right. I love that
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah. You know, there's a saying in design that every designer, every architect, you learn, and it says form follows function. And what that means is basically my iteration of that is make it work right first and then make it beautiful. And really that is what, in my opinion, every designer, anybody who has any influence over a structure, right? Whether you're an architect, you're an engineer, you're a designer, you're whatever, it is really incumbent upon you to make the situation work properly first and then make it beautiful. And you know, the yucky thing about that is that sometimes you use a lot of your budget correcting mistakes or making something work properly first.
Yeah.
And you don't have a lot left to make it pretty. I experienced that in my own house when we bought it and had to do some renovations. And I thought, nobody's going to see this.
That's a lot of money for nothing aesthetically pleasing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But kind of to your point about the lighting, you know, make it work right. This is your home. Nobody, I mean, I get it. I kind of feel the same way about uniformity but at the cost of a poorly performing space, that's not worth it.
No.
Ever.
You're going to regret it. You're never going to use it. You're going to complain while you're there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So making a space work properly first. That's goal number one.
Key.
Yeah.
You've designed, I mean, anything from planes and bathrooms to whole houses and everywhere in between.
Doctors' offices, commercial spaces, yes.
So you've seen all the good and all the bad. So what would you say might be one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're designing a space? Maybe they don't realize it going in, but if they knew it on the front end, they wouldn't have chosen that.
Right. It's a very good, very good question. And there's a couple of ways to look at that, right? There's a couple of different facets to that.
Well, it
that
probably
diamond.
depends on what you're designing first.
It depends on what you're designing. It depends on the goal. I think one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they try to do too much. I cannot tell you the number of times that people get way in over their heads and they say, well, but don't you think if we're going to be painting, all the furniture is going to be out of the room, we may as well get new flooring too. Don't you think?
It's kind of like if you give a mouse a cookie.
It's that, I use that example all the time. How many people don't know that amazing book?
Really?
But it is literally if you give a mouse a cookie.
Yes.
Yeah. you never read that thing 5,000 times at bedtime.
Yes, that was one of our favorites in the whole series.
Yes, all of them.
At our house, yes.
Because you gave the mouse the cookie.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you have to buy the next one. And by doing too much, it is very, very, very important that you assess what you're capable of doing. And by that, I mean, what is your budget? Because the reality is you got to pay for this.
Right.
Right? And I think only really, truly responsible designers will have that discussion with you. You have to have some really hard discussions sometimes. You get to know a lot about your client. I've worn all the hats. I mean, marriage counselor, financial advisor. I mean, you do all the things. And if you're really responsible, then, what I try and do is say, hey, let's make a menu. Let's make a menu list of goals that we want to accomplish for your space. And we can look at what each of those items is going to cost and what it's going to take to do that, so that you know how to project and how to save for that, or how to prepare yourself for that, or and try and set the expectations with them so that they know before they start a project. I think one of the other big mistakes that people make is trying to keep up with the trends. I've said this several times during our discussion. Putting the pressure on yourself to look like the magazine or to, oh, but I went through this store and I just fell in love. I had to have it. Really? Because
Doesn't match anything.
I've never, I just don't. And I think that people put a lot of pressure on themselves. Maybe they have a friend and they went to their friend's house and they just absolutely, loved what they had or the way something looked, and they just let it get away from them.
Yeah.
And I think keeping in mind what your real actual goals are that's the most important thing. So when I work with a client, talking about their actual goals is really conversation number one. What are you really wanting to accomplish with this space? And you don't have to have a designer sit down with you to do that. You can sit down and think, okay, if I'm not feeling pleased with this space anymore, what is it that I am not vibing with anymore? What is it that is setting me off a little bit? Quite often people will buy a home and they'll tour the home and they'll go, this home has really good bones, but it needs a complete gut and redo. Why are you buying that house?
Great question. Because now they're looking
Because
at
you really
lots
don't
of
like the
dollars.
house.
Yeah.
You like what's in you like what's in your mind.
Yeah.
And some people buy that house and they absolutely can do that. And that's wonderful. That keeps me paying bills.
Right.
But
Yes, that keeps you in business.
if you're
Yes.
an everyday person, either know that is going to be a very long term, or, there's the triangle that's, you can have it fast and high quality, or you can have it, what is the fast, high quality, and expense. There's those three. You can only have two. If you want it fast
it's not.
and high quality, it's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
If you want it fast and you ain't got no budget, it's probably not going to be real good quality.
Yeah.
Right? There's those three things, and just know you're going to compromise
On one of them. That's great. That's great.
Unless you have an unending budget and you can just, throw all kinds of money in it and whatever else.
Yeah.
But even at that point, you can't have all of your tradespeople in a space at one time, right? So there is going to be a bit of a time crunch, but there are those three metrics.
Love it.
Pick two, compromise on one.
Cost, time, quality.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
And in
That's
general,
good.
that's the little triangle that you can
Work with.
you stabilize on two of them. The other one is going to probably be a little compromised.
Yeah. So when you are in a space and you are learning about your client and you know that there's a clutter. Clutter is causing stress. But maybe they don't understand that or they don't realize that. How do you approach the clutter stress scenario?
Yeah. That's one of those really hard conversations that if I can, I try to wait a couple of dates. And
smart.
you have to have a little bit of you have to have a relationship to have those discussions with somebody. You may have like an immediate rapport and you may be able to just kind of dive right in. You kind of have to gauge it a little bit. And some of that comes with just time and experience. Because believe me, I've said some things, I'm sure, early on in my career that people were like, that was out loud. I can't believe you just said that to me. But I actually I've worked with 3 hoarders in my past.
Really?
That is not my gift and talent. I may be a very sensitive girl, but there is not enough patience in the world for me to do that ongoing. So I will just say, because that's really a lot of psychological work, and I am not qualified for that.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, the tie between clutter and stress, it is a real thing, because, as we talked about a little bit before, to keep your eye moving, to keep your eyes, to keep you engaged in your environment, there needs to be a little bit of change occasionally, right? If you live in a constant state of clutter, there's always something in the back of your head that knows something needs to be done. And you're always feeling bad about yourself for just not doing it. You know, there's always that, you're always kind of beating yourself up just a little bit. And you may say, oh, I work best whenever, you know, and there's a bit of that that's true. I mean, if you looked at my desk right now, you'd be like,
how do you
practice
know
what you preach, sister.
I know it's under that pile right there.
Exactly. But when you're working on several projects, you do need, okay, that's different.
Messy
that's your
is
office.
different. Messy
that's right.
is
I was
different.
about to say that exact same thing.
Yeah.
Having your things out and working actively is different than you just haven't put your junk away.
Yeah.
And it's not helping you. It's not serving you.
You haven't seen your kitchen table in 12 weeks.
Right.
That's a problem.
Right. You can't get up your stairs because all the things you put on your stairs with the hope of getting them upstairs is not happening. There's some saying out there. It was so funny. It's a meme that says there's nothing more hopeless than a woman who puts things on her stairs thinking her children will take them with them. And it's so true. But now it's transferred to me because I'm an empty nester and I do the same dang thing.
Which reminds me, I remember seeing this basket one time that was made for stairs. And I thought,
sad.
first of all, that's really cute. I need that. Hell no.
Yeah.
If I buy that, that will pile up and we'll never even know what is in the bottom
I'll get
of that
14
basket.
of them and it'll just line the stairs.
No.
And then
It will
I
be
am a
growing
hazard to
things.
myself coming up and down the stairs because I'm going to trip on it.
Absolutely true.
I thought the same thing when I saw that. I was like, that's brilliant. And then I wanted to slap myself. No, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's horrible. It's an
Yes.
excuse. Stop that. But yeah, the connection between clutter and stress is absolutely real. I vehemently oppose these beds. Now, this is going to be controversial, so don't come at me. Those beds that have storage underneath, I hate those things.
Oh.
Because I don't even know how to describe it. I'm not that weird about things, but there is a connection to having things under your bed and a lack of rest and peace. Because there's just something underneath you all the time.
Interesting.
And I'm just almost violently opposed to those things.
This
Now,
is
I get
very
it.
fascinating.
I get it. You know, if you live in a small
Right.
if you live in New York and you have to have it, then you probably have peace knowing that you can have more clothes
Sure.
than your, 18-inch closet. Okay,
Right.
I totally understand the need for that.
Sure. Yeah.
But in
If you're
general,
not
those
living in a tiny house,
are
then
not well organized.
Yeah.
They're just a place to throw things. Let's be real.
let's be real. I had that for my teenage son. Mm-hmm. Well, we ended up you were hitting on all cylinders with that because it was a smaller room, so he could have like a living space
Yes.
in it also.
Yes.
So we had a couch and a TV, and then I found a pepperoni in like.
Well, some of that is just the Y chromosome. I mean, excuse me. I raised two of those. I'm the only female in my house. I mean, I even have two male dogs.
Oh,
I
that's
bought
funny.
one of those beta fishes.
Yeah.
Thinking, oh, they're so beautiful.
Mean.
Those are male.
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
And
dadgummit.
they will they're mean.
Yeah. So, like, the Y chromosome.
Yes.
Oh.
And I even bought organizational boxes to go in the big box to keep things organized.
I did that
like
too.
every mother
I
on
did
the planet, right?
Every mother. I had
Not gonna happen.
I had these little square things that hung from the
in the
closet rug
closet.
that
Oh.
had days of the week, and I every weekend when we would do laundry, I'd be like, okay, let's load up our squares for the week, and my boys literally they would just be like,
Like, Mom, we're still doing this.
oh, they would rebel. I would go in there midweek. They were not wearing Monday's clothes. They were not even, they hadn't even touched those things. They were getting things out of everywhere else. And they would just keep that loaded
Oh my gosh.
and tell me, oh yeah, I've already loaded that. And they would not wear those clothes. So they
No.
wouldn't have to reload it.
That is funny. That's improvising,
Yes.
right? In the real world, when they were adults, we would say that would be problem solving.
Yes. It did not solve my problem.
No, it did not make a mama happy.
No, but what mother has not tried some form of organizational trick
Absolutely.
to help?
Yeah, it doesn't help.
No, it does not. But back to the original question. Clutter does cause stress. Yeah. It does create strife. It does, because your mind, there's just always something in the back of your mind going, I have something to do.
Which was a form of procrastination. I was reading recently about different forms of depression, and I was surprised to learn that they say that procrastination is a form of depression. Yeah. Yeah. And clearly someone who, well, maybe not cluttered, but hoarders, if we're going to go on the very opposite end of that spectrum, that would definitely fall into that category. But clutter definitely affects mood.
I think, and this is another controversial statement, but we shop way too much. We, because it's so much fun and enjoyable, and you get that hit of dopamine.
Absolutely.
When you go find a little treasure for your house, or a little new little blouse, or and I'm guilty of it too.
Or a smoking good price on something that you've wanted a long time.
Oh, yeah. And then you don't get rid of it because you're like, but
I paid so much for
that.
I
know. Or it was a smoking good deal. I can't.
I can't let that
treasure go. I kept a pair of actual suede pants, like real suede.
Oh my!
Do you remember the store, The Limited?
Oh baby, yes, I loved.
And when they would
store.
give you those, when you walked in, it was sale weekend, and they give you that scratch off, and you got even more off of your purchase. I got a brown suede pants for $5.
Oh my!
It was amazing.
The thread cost more than $5.
I may still have those pants somewhere. I don't know. I mean. And we do that to ourselves, right? Just as a society, as a culture.
Yes. We
shop and we assign value, but do we? Because we keep it in our closet and we never let it go.
Right.
So, I think the thing that really turns into your hit of dopamine is going through and just taking a little bit of time. And we all have heard of the whole Marie Kondo thing. If it doesn't spark joy, whatever.
Yep.
I've always believed that. Dadgummit, I should have
stole it from you.
Should have written a book. To me, it wasn't spark joy. She's much more eloquent about it. To me, it was, if it irritates you, get rid of it. Because we all know there is that last piece of underwear that when you haven't done laundry and you get to the bottom of your stack and you're like, I hate this. I hate this pair of underwear. Guess it's time to do laundry. Yeah. Well, get rid of that pair of underwear, honey.
Yes.
So like that kind of there's a blouse that every time you look at it, you go, ugh.
Yeah.
What?
Why are you looking at it?
Why are you literally paying a mortgage for that to live in your space? That's the way that I talk about it with my clients.
That's great.
You're paying a mortgage. Is it worth the mortgage amount that you're paying every month for it to live in your space? If it irritates you,
change it.
Get that out. Get it out. And it really it's amazing once you start doing that and you do start giving yourself permission to let go of some things. That's its own form of dopamine hit,
isn't it?
The freedom that you've just cleaned out some space and you don't have to look at that anymore.
Exactly.
And I'll go in and organize for people,
really?
Yeah.
Is that something people ask you to do?
They haven't in a long time.
Sure.
And it's not, there's a lot of services that specialize in that. I don't love that. I kind of am like, we have people for that. Yeah. But when I am planning a kitchen or a whatever, then that's a very big discussion about, how are we going to organize this? You don't just design a kitchen.
Right, because you have to understand the usable space. How do they cook? Do they cook? Do they bake?
Right.
How are they? Right. What's their family situation?
And one client that I just completed they just moved in, but whenever we were working on their kitchen design, we actually sat down and took measurements of the items that they had so that I knew how big to design. One of my favorite things to design is cabinetry. And that comes from my days in aviation, because you design every door, every drawer, every cabinet, everything. And so that's my happy place, is actually designing cabinetry. And so, organizing and really planning for something. And like our mom has always said, there's, a place for everything and everything in its place. But like literally designing your space for that, there's nothing like it.
What
There's
a dream.
nothing like it. Yeah. Yeah.
What
For
a
me
dream.
too.
Yeah. I remember just thinking about having lots of things and the unnecessary need to have all the things.
Yeah.
I had an aunt pass away, and we were cleaning out, helping her family and cleaning out her bathroom. It was just her hall bathroom, not her
Primary bath.
Right. And the amount of lotion bottles would blow your mind. And we got tickled after a while. We were like,
Yeah.
why? Why all
Bessie
the
really
lotion?
liked lotion.
Right. Yes. And so
Somebody had a sale on lotion. Aunt Bessie stocked up.
she just kept and you think, it goes bad after a couple of years. But my grandmother at the time, they had a very large family, and this was her older sister, and she was talking about how they didn't have anything when they were young, and their mom beat into their brain about, living through the Depression, and when you don't have anything, and then all of a sudden you can have things. Sometimes you have more things than you need, and you hold on to them. Yeah. I think that was the first time I understood some of the psychology behind the need to be surrounded by things or have things that you might not even use.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. My grandmother, I remember specifically, when we would be at her house, she would wash the tinfoil that she would cover her casserole with. She'd lay it down on the counter and very gently roll it back out. And she'd take a little soapy cloth and wash it and dry it. She refused to buy plastic bags. She would use the plastic bags that you would put your produce in and wash that.
Oh my goodness.
She was a home economics major.
Oh, wow.
I think she graduated college back in the 20s or something, when women really were not doing a lot of college graduating. So she was a home economics major and graduated with her degree in home economics. And she taught me and my sister, and I still, to this day, I have a very hard time buying anything but a whole chicken. Because she was like,
all the parts.
You cook the whole thing,
Yeah.
and you can make 3 or 4 meals out of it, and then you use the bones and the scraps, and you make broth, and then you use the cooked down parts of that, and you make your dog food, and nothing wasted. Literally, I do sometimes make my own dog food, because I'm like, well, grandmother would absolutely have an apoplectic fit if she. I cannot buy chicken breast. I don't. I just can't do it.
I think there's a lot of beauty in that. And honestly, to be controversial, I guess, I think if ladies had more time today, the thought of being able to do that, I think would bring us a lot more joy, because then we all get pride in feeding our family and our pets. And being useful with what we buy.
And being respectful of the cost. People are talking right now about eggs and and I have a very small pantry. This is very controversial too. You'd think that I would, want this big, massive pantry. I have a very small pantry. I keep ingredients in my pantry. I don't keep a ton of boxed, pre-prepared items. Now, don't let me lie. It's not like I'm, I'm not Martha Stewart.
Sure.
I'm not making pasta from scratch, although I do have a machine that I could
Do it.
My son, one of them, well, they both bought it for Christmas, but it was one of them's idea. He bought a pasta making machine and a grain grinding. He was like, "Oh, Mom, you would like this?" Well, I would, but I mean, I'm like, between the hours of what and what do you think I'm going to be grinding grain? But thank you.
But it's a very thoughtful gift.
But one day I will. Yes, the idea behind being able to do that.
Yeah.
Because that's what used to be done.
Yeah. And I think we could stand to
And
bring
having
back
the
some of
space
those
to do
beautiful
it,
ways.
to tie it back into design.
Yeah.
Having the space that is planned to do that, so that if you wanted to, and if that brought you joy, if that was one of your goals, then designing a space where you could accomplish those things. And I do have clients that have all kinds of countertop appliances that they have to have space, and,
Sure.
that you don't want on the countertop all the time.
So then tell us about a story, because it sounds like you have transformed a lot of different spaces. So tell us about one of those stories that really did bring someone a state of well-being, that the before and after was a very different scenario, and the outcome, that your client was in a much better place mentally, physically, because of that.
Yeah. My very favorite one, and it was early on in my personal career, but it affected me so deeply, and it affected the way I approach every client. It was not a paying gig. It was a young single mom from the church that I attended at the time. And she was like, "Hey, can you just kind of come help me? I just don't like the place." And it was a little apartment, so she couldn't paint. She couldn't do a lot of things. She was like, "I only have just a little bit of money, to do anything with." And she had this little boy. He was, I don't know, at the time, 6, 7, maybe. And I met them at the house, and we kind of talked about some stuff and what were her goals, what did she want, what did she like, what did she not like, and we packed a bunch of things up. We took some things to donate. We, cleared some things out, and then we ran by, I don't remember, it was Target, Walmart, a big box place, but that was back in the 90s, so I don't remember where we went, but we spent very, very little money. I think we bought some bedding and maybe some towels and maybe a little plant or a couple of pillows, some candles, whatever. And when we were finished, I'm not a crier, but she started crying.
Oh.
And she said, "I never thought I would have a place this pretty.
Oh.
I never thought, I love this so much. It makes me feel so good about myself, because everything she had was used in secondhand and not in good shape. And, but you can work with the things that you have, kind of what we've said. And probably one of the things you're going to be asking. There's a really great, it's actually a devotional book. It's called Girl, Wash Your Face.
Well, I know that book.
Girl, Clean Your House. So much changes when you put things away, when you declutter, when you actually clean, like dust. Wipe your countertops down. Wipe the face of your cabinets down. Clean. Get something clean. That's free. You don't have to pay anything to do that.
Right. And it is amazing. It almost feels transformational in and of itself.
It truly does. And one of the things that I will tell people is, and if you need to, take a picture. Take a before, take several during shots, and take an after.
That's great.
It's so motivational because, and I do that with myself. I will, as I'm putting things away, I'll stop and I'll take a look, and I'll think, this is looking better. This is worth the time and effort to do this. And then decide what things you want to put away for a while. Maybe you're going to cycle them in and out, or maybe you're done with them and somebody else might enjoy them. If you need to kind of refresh with some things, start simple. A couple of candles, a couple of pillows. If you're going to do pillows, maybe you just get pillows. Maybe you get a good pillow. Like I really love down pillows. They're expensive, but they're that good fluffy that you can like
Mold and
they're just, and they're comfortable.
Yeah.
Maybe you buy the pillow covers that are, you invest every season until you've gotten 4 sets of whatever color or pattern or whatever. Shift those out. That's less expensive to do than redoing an entire room. Maybe you find an inexpensive little area rug that kind of refreshes something. But declutter, clean your space and keep it clean. And give yourself permission to let go or cycle things out. So that you keep the things that you love, but maybe you keep them in your vision and you change where you place them every now and then. Just kind of switch it out every now and then. Yeah, rearrange some things every now and then. And just don't feel the pressure to look like the magazine or look like your best friend. Or it's kind of the same thing fashion-wise or the way we feel about our bodies. Give yourself permission to like where you are.
Absolutely.
Like what you have.
Love what you have.
Yeah.
That's right.
Why,
Be happy in your own
before
skin.
you buy something new, do you really, really love that? Like, and I use the word love very loosely. How about, do you really, really like that? Is it really worth how hard you had to work to earn that $10?
Yes.
Or would you like to save that $10 and make it 20 and get something that you really, really need or really, really want?
Yes.
Great
point. Great point. That's something my husband will ask me sometimes too. I will be making a case for something I think that I need or we need or this would make this space look different.
Of course.
And that's always his first question because we have an agreement that I won't spend over a certain amount, right, without
you don't have
talking through it.
We have the same agreement. There's a no-go zone.
Yeah.
And above that, we have to have a discussion. Anything below that,
it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he'll say, do you love it? Do you love it? And sometimes it's an immediate, and he knows it. And then he's like, well, then, honey, if it will make you happy, then yes.
Yeah.
And then other times he's like, I'm not feeling like you love it. I think you really like it, but I'm not sure that you love it. And I can hear myself going, it would match this, but I'm not sure if it, and he's like, and he'll just listen. And I'm clearly answering my own question. So exactly right, to your point. Or one of the other things I will do is, I don't know if I'm ready to spend that amount of money on this, right? I love this. That's pretty steep. And I'll sit on it, right? If I come back to it, if it's 2 weeks later and I've been thinking about that stinking thing and I see it, I can now visualize it in my space.
Salivating over it. Yeah.
I might go back and get it.
Do you, when you're online shopping, do you put stuff in your cart and then keep that tab open?
And then I get emails. You forgot something.
Text.
Something's waiting.
Because you signed up to get the extra 15%
15% off.
First purchase, which then they're sending you emails for the rest of your life.
I know.
I do that. I keep the tab open with the cart, and then I'm like, the tab is still open. Yeah, I'm going to pause on that. I'm going to keep that tab open. And then after a while, I'm like, that tab's been open for 4 weeks. I ain't getting that.
I'm not getting that.
Yeah.
But you know what? That goes back to the dopamine hit, which we know that the online shopping does. And when you just put it in your cart, you kind of get a little I like that.
It might be mine.
Yes.
It might be mine.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Well, those are so actionable, and anybody can walk through their space and do those things and just start there.
Yeah.
Right? Just start there.
Yeah. You don't always have to spend a bunch of money, and you don't always have to have a designer. I mean, please call me. But truly, I have one client, and she's one of my longest standing clients. I've worked with her for 18 years now.
Oh, wow.
And I tell her all the time, she has such great taste. And I tell her all the time, you don't need me. I mean, I love you, but you don't need me.
Yeah.
She's like, no, I do, because you help me work through, and you come up with ideas that I wouldn't have. So I do clearly still need you. And I'm always so glad that she's gracious with that. But,
Sure.
there are things there's a difference in a decorator and a designer, right? It's kind of like the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need a decorator. And I'm not denigrating
Sure.
anyone. There's room for everyone.
Sure.
So know what you need, what you're really asking for. And then I would say, if you do feel you need a designer, understand that is I've paid a big price in my life to be where I am. And you're not paying for an hour of my time.
Yeah.
You're paying for 35 years of experience. Just like, anybody else who's been doing something for a long time.
That's exactly right.
And so the mutual respect and recognizing the value. I have some clients who, well, really, they're not clients. They're just people who they'll just text me a picture and say, hey, what do you think of this? And, sometimes you're like,
Can you stop? I know.
would you
have
ask your
doctor
dentist
friends.
at a party? Can you?
I know. Yeah.
Make an appointment.
Yeah. Let's respect each other.
And I mean, sometimes you don't mind because it's okay.
Sure.
It's okay. But sometimes you do, whenever it's a repeated offense, you kind of start going,
how about you give me a call and we sit down and talk for 30 minutes? How about that?
yeah, I'm free next week. Would you like for me to book an hour of time?
Yeah, exactly right.
That good old Southern.
Show them with kindness. That's right.
Darling,
Yes.
my calendar's open next week.
And that is a nice way to move the situation along, as they say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Kendall, this was such a fun conversation.
It was fun. Thank you so much for just letting me talk on and on and on.
Yes.
I thoroughly enjoyed our time.
Oh,
I enjoyed our visit. I feel like we've been best friends for a long time.